Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Brandon Bias from CheckIt.com and welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. As it so happens to be, tomorrow is going to be Halloween. Heck yes! The great day of dressing up in random villains or slutty costumes and just all kinds of randomness and then going around banging on people's doors and getting candy. What could be better than Halloween? So anyway, Halloween is a pretty big deal here in America, and so I just figured it'd be kind of cool if we did a Halloween themed tutorial. So no, I'm not gonna do like a pumpkin like drawing or anything like that. I figured that'd be a little too cliche. Instead, we're gonna keep with the whole like creepy vibe that you get from Halloween and take a self-portrait and convert it into Slenderman. And if you don't really know what Slenderman is, then you can just Google it and you'll get all kinds of information on Slenderman, like who he is, what he is, where he originally came from, and you might even come across the Slenderman game, or it's called Slender if I remember right, and it's supposed to be like really, really creepy, and I haven't played it yet, but maybe I will here shortly. So anyway, that's what we're doing today. We're taking a picture and we're converting it into Slenderman, adding in this nice little background. So before we start here, I want to let you guys know that this tutorial is really not meant for beginners. It's actually kind of difficult to fix up the face like I've done here. It takes a lot of time, and it's just not really something for beginners to do. But if you want to watch anyway, I'll try and explain a few things in a way for beginners to understand. But for the most part, this is meant for the more advanced user. And so let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial here. So obviously, the first thing you're going to need is a photo. And if you want to just use my photo, then I'll just put a download link to it in the description for you. But if you want to take it yourself, there are a few things that you are going to need. For example, you're probably going to want to, show yourself in the Slenderman role. For example, I'm wearing a suit with a red tie, with a white collared shirt, and I've got my hands just off to my sides, kind of straight and not like holding anything. They're not in my pockets or anything of the sort. And also, if you decide to take your own picture, one of the key things is to keep your eyes closed. This is going to help with the whole process of smoothing out the face and making it look like you don't have any facial features or anything of the sort. Okay, so once you've got all of that in your picture, you are set to go. So I'm just going ahead and I'll delete all of these extra things over here. And the first thing you're going to do is mask off your photo. I'm not going to explain how to do this because, again, this is meant for advanced users. And if you really want to learn how masking works and all that, I have a tutorial on that already, so I'll just put the link to that in the description if you'd want. And if you're masking this yourself, one thing that you should know is that you need to get rid of your ears when you're masking, because Slenderman doesn't have ears or facial features or anything of the sort, so mask off your ears while you're doing that part. And another thing that you may want to do is get rid of your acne. So that's something that I just went ahead and did before the video, because that's also another really basic thing that you should know how to do already. And again, if you want to know how to do that yourself, I can give you a link in the description to a tutorial I've already done for that. Okay, so once you've got yourself masked out, ears are chopped off, and you have all the acne gone, we're ready to start the actual tutorial itself. So I'm going to make a duplicate of my cleaned up layer by hitting Control J, and I'll just turn that off, and I'll rename this Slender Brand, because my name is Brandon, and it's kind of a clever way to incorporate that. Okay, so let's zoom in and let's start cracking here. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our healing brush. And if you don't understand how that works, basically what you do is you hold the Alt key or the Option key if you're on a Mac, and you click an area that you want to sample the pixels. So in this case, I can sample like my chin or something. And then when you click and drag somewhere, you'll notice this little crosshair going across to show which area is being copied to where your brush is. And so if I just keep going across like this, And then if I let go, it's going to try and combine that area that was sampled with the existing picture. And so that is basically what we're going to use to try and cover up the facial features of, of me if you're using my picture, or yourself if you're using your own. So I'm just going to resample below here on the chin and click and drag. Oop, maybe not right there. Maybe I'll go up in my cheek and I'll click and drag, stop, then click and drag again, and just get rid of that little dip that you saw in my chin because of, where my lip was. So I guess I'll just go ahead and continue while I'm here. I'll sample, click and drag across the lips, and that's looking pretty good. So we'll just keep going. So sample over here, click and drag up here. And that's actually looking pretty good. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on doing this. I'm just going to give you the basic idea of how to go through and do this. So my final result during the tutorial is probably not going to look quite as good as what I showed you for the example, because I really don't want to spend too much time here. So let's go ahead and sample a cheek and just click and drag across the side of the nose over here to kind of get rid of that the curvature that you saw there, so that way it looks like it's a little more smooth. And then I'll sample down here in this little smooth region and then use that across the nostril there to smooth that over. And then let's try and do the same thing for this nostril right here. And maybe I'll smooth out this bottom area like so. And of course, we want to smooth this out as well. So I will grab maybe this side of the cheek and let's click and drag around over here and just see how that turns out. Not too shabby. Let's try and smooth this out even more. Like so. And now when I smoothed that out, I ended up losing a lot of the shading there. So I'm going to sample further up on the bridge and click and drag downwards and try and get as much of that back as I can. And then I'll also go back through and try and smooth it out, see what happens. Maybe not so much. Let's try and do this a little bit more. Whatever. I think it looks kind of okay, but I'd probably want to go through even more and try and make that look a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more gradual. If you saw in the original, this was pretty much gone, but there was still a little shading left. So if you want to, what you can do is just get rid of that completely and then just go through with your burn tool and add in some custom shading yourself. But for the time being, I'll just kind of leave it as it is because, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on making this look, absolutely perfect. So just kind of go through and just randomly add in the adjustments and just see what you like there. So for the eyes, you can actually keep the eyes pretty simple. So what you can do is just sample like a little underneath it, so right there, and then just click and drag once, and I'll maybe go down a little bit further down below the eye and then let go. And that should look, fairly decent. It's maybe not perfect, but it looks pretty good. And then we can do the same thing for the top of the eye, but for this I'll sample like the forehead or something like that, and then click and drag over and let it do its thing. And that's pretty decent. Again, not perfect, but that's not the goal. It's just to smooth everything out, and you can spend as much time as you want on that. So I'll do the same thing on the other eye. So click and drag underneath. Oops, I'm getting some of the hair in there. Maybe I'll sample a little further over. So let's do the bottom part of the eye there. I accidentally got some of the nose, so I'll sample the cheek and get rid of that area like so. That's not too bad. I guess you can keep some of your eyelid in there if you so choose. It's I guess it doesn't look all that bad, but I really want to get rid of that myself. So that part's up to you whether or not you want to keep the upper part of the eyelid or not. And also we need to get rid of the eyebrows, so we'll do that as well. Sample above the eyebrow, go over, and let's just get rid of that, see how it looks. Not too shabby, but maybe I'll go through and smooth it out some even more on the edges and more along where the eye is. So that's not too bad. Now let's do the same thing on the other eyebrow. Click and drag. Let's not run into the edge of the hair there because that's going to start looking kind of bad. So I'll size down my brush and let's just start doing all these bits that are a little closer to the hair. And let's just try and go back and get rid of that larger portion right there. Okay. Now, if you have this little thing right here to where even when you sample a really bright area and you try and fix it up, sometimes it'll darken it instead. So one way you can actually fix that is by going and grabbing the clone stamp tool over here on the left-hand side, and then with your opacity, let's put the flow back up and put the opacity down to like, let's just say 20% for the time being. So I'll sample the cheek, go through, and maybe go up to 50% instead. Let's try that again. So sample the cheek and go a little bit down this way. There we go. So it's not too bad. You might want to go through and smooth things out, and then you can go back to the healing brush and then just go through as you were before, smoothing things out, making it look a little bit cleaner and things like that. Oh man, I look like I'm freaking hideous right now. That is pretty volatile. Gross. Okay, so again, spend as much time as you want on that. If you want to, you can smooth out your hands as well, but that's not really necessary as far as I remember. I'm pretty sure Slenderman's hands are normal. But the next thing we're going to do is help out the smoothing of the face. And this is a trick that I learned a while ago, so just kind of follow along here. Let's duplicate the layer here by hitting Control-J or Command-J if you're on a Mac, and I will rename this to Smoothing. And then let's invert that by hitting Control-I or Command-I if you're on a Mac. Come on, Control-I, there we go. And then we're going to change the blend mode to Vivid Light, and then we'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And you're just going to set this to a set of pixels where you're just seeing a little bit of the texture of the skin. So somewhere between 3 and 5 is going to be pretty good for this. We'll hit OK. And then we'll go to Filter, Other, and we'll go to High Pass. And then from here on, you're just going to set it to a setting to where the skin looks smooth, but you don't get any weird ghosting or anything like that. So let's just, let's see how smooth we can get this to look. So somewhere right around there looks pretty good. So I have it set to 7 pixels right now. We'll hit OK. Looking nice. And we only want this to be applied to the face. So I'm going to go to the layer mask of the layer here. And since black is my foreground color, I can fill this in with black by hitting Alt Backspace or Option Delete if you're on a Mac. Then let's go back to our brush tool with the letter B, and I'll scale this up with my right bracket key here. And with white as my foreground color, I'll start clicking and dragging on the areas where I want it to smooth out. So all across the face here, down the chin, into the neck. And that's looking good. Now let's go into the forehead up here. There we go. Just make sure you're bringing this all into the areas that you want smoothed out. Looking good. Okay, so now let's do a little bit of I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. So that's before and after. So not too shabby. If you want to dumb this down a little bit, you can always lower the opacity to like 75%. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and keep that at 75%. And now what we'll do is kind of desaturate the skin to make it look a little bit more pale. So one way you can do this is by adding a hue and saturation layer, or you can add a black and white layer and lower the opacity on that. But for this, we'll just lower the saturation to about negative 50 or so, just to kind of desaturate the skin and make it look a little interesting. But you also notice at the same time that you lost the color in the tie there. So with the layer mask on the hue and saturation layer selected, hit Control-I to invert that, or Command-I if you're on a Mac. And then we'll just go through and paint in white on all of these areas that we want to desaturate. And I'll even desaturate the hair too, because I think that'll make it look a little bit better. Okay, so that's desaturated. Now we'll also do the same thing for the hands. So I'll do that Across the hand there. Looking good. And we'll do the other hand as well. Do all that. So there we go. Now our hands and our face are nice and desaturated. And we're off to a very good start. So the next thing we'll want to do is stretch out the arms so that they're, you know, supernaturally long, because the Slenderman is supposed to have extremely long arms. So here's what we're going to do. Let's merge everything into a new layer by hitting Control, Alt, Shift E, or Command, Option, Shift E if you happen to be on a Mac. And let's take the hue and saturation, the smoothing, and the Slenderman layer, and let's put these into a group by hitting Control G, and you can rename that Slenderman or Slenderman. And then we'll just rename this to Stretchy, or something of the sort, doesn't really matter. Because now what we're going to do is we'll grab our lasso tool or the polygonal lasso tool, depending on your preference, and just make a selection around one of the arms. And when you get to the jacket here, just make a slight selection around the seam of the shoulder there. And then just come back around and finish that selection like so. And I'll zoom in a little bit so I can see what's going on here. So now we'll just hit Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac to bring up the transformation tool. And we're just going to click and drag this bottom arrow here right on down here. And how much you stretch it is completely up to you. But in my opinion, I kind of like to keep the wrist kind of at the same overall level as the tips of the fingers. So you're basically extending this one hand's width or height down, whatever. So somewhere in there, whatever looks pretty good to you. But now we've stretched out the arm in a very awkward fashion. So let's right click on this and go to warp. And so now with the warp tool, just kind of tweak this as you see fit. So for example, maybe I'll go back up to the top of the shoulder here and I'll try and make this match up a little bit better. And I've stretched out this part of the arm, so maybe I'll stretch that back upwards like so. And while I'm at it, I'll also bend the arm outwards just to give it that Slenderman feel. And maybe I'll bring this hand back in. And so just kind of keeping in mind where all that's going. So I'll have to fix the arm back over here. And also you'll notice that you can see the original arm below it. So that will kind of help give you an idea of where the arm used to be and where it's going. So we can also use this as a way to bring the arm back to its original position, so right around there. And then also going back and fixing the top of the shoulder like so. So that's looking pretty decent. The arm looks a little bit thicker than it used to be, so maybe we'll click and drag the outsides a little in to trim that up a little bit. But overall, we're doing pretty good. Let's fix the corner again. Make sure this is looking pretty good. All right, so now that that's looking all just fine and dandy, we'll hit the little check mark to commit that transformation and then Control D to deselect. So there we go. We have one arm nice and stretched. But now we need to get rid of the arm below it. So add a layer mask. Oop, I just noticed that I spelled that wrong. Slenderman. There we go. And so add a layer mask to the Slenderman group, then go to your brush tool and make sure you're set to black and just get rid of the arm underneath it. Keep things nice and simple. Okie dokie. Very nice. So now that that's looking pretty good, one thing that we do need to make sure is that the stretchy part of the arm blends with the original jacket. So add a layer mask to stretchy, or whatever you named it, and let's just use a soft brush and go across this little edge that we see forming over here next to the seam, and just kind of go on down until that looks, whoops, I'll need to bring some of that back. There we go. Much better. So there we go. That's blending nicely. There's no harsh edge. We just got rid of that, as you can see there. Now that all blends just all nicely. Now another thing that we'll want to do to the arm is let's just grab a rectangular marquee tool and make a selection around the hand here. and then hit Control T or Command T, and we'll stretch that back down until it is the proper size. Oh, whoops, I forgot to select the original layer instead of the layer mask. So select the thumbnail of the layer there and then hit Control T rather than having the mask selected. And there we go. We'll just size that on down and hit the check mark. Very nice. Now, when you do that, sometimes what you'll get is a little bit of a little hiccup here on the edge right here. So in order to fix that, just grab your, oops, not the history brush, but the clone stamp tool, and we'll size this down, sample somewhere up above here, and then click and drag off to the side. Oops, put the opacity back up, and we'll just fill that in. And let's put up the hardness there and fill that in. There we go. And then just continue over here, sample, bring it back over. And somewhere right around there. I should probably fix this up a little bit more. There we go. Much better. There you go. So clone stamp tool to fix up those little parts. And I'll leave my other arm just as it is for the time being, just to save up time. And now let's just add in the background. So let's make a layer underneath Slenderman. And let's just, so select the cleanup layer. We'll go to Layer, New Fill Layer, Gradient. And you can just name this BG for background. And keep everything default in the screen and hit OK. And for the gradient, what we're going to do is, well, first of all, click the black to white gradient or whatever gradient you want. And let's make the first slider a really light gray. And we'll make the second slider a slightly darker gray. And hit OK. And then for this, we'll change the style from linear to radial. And keep the angle at 90 degrees, and then just increase the scale as you so choose. And maybe I'll go back and lighten up that light gray a little bit more. Hit OK. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. Maybe I'll darken, oh, actually not darken. Let's put the scale back down a little bit to bring back that darker shade. And also what you can do is click and drag the center point of that gradient upwards. So that way the center is right here and then it fades to that nice gray out there. So there we go. Once you have that, you can hit OK. And there you go, guys. You've got your Slenderman. So hopefully you guys learned something pretty cool from this overall tutorial. Again, if you're new to this and you need some of those other tutorials that I mentioned earlier, just let me know, or you can just search for them yourself. You know, either way works for me. And if you like this video, please let me know by commenting and letting me know that way, or by liking the video, sharing it with others. And if you happen to make your own really cool Slenderman, you should, I don't know, share your picture with me or something. I'm on Facebook all the freaking time, so feel free to share with me what you will. And let's put that back. There we go. Accidentally changed it to CMYK somehow. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this tutorial. I hope it was understandable for you guys. And just, you know, let me know what you think, and I will see you guys next Tuesday.